All right, so this is the agenda. So let's begin by just talking about Oracle, Microsoft, .NET. What's our relationship here? So if you take a look at this timeline, going back to the very beginnings when .NET was introduced, Oracle's been chugging along, releasing versions of our products and support for different versions of Visual Studio as they have come along. So if you look along the bottom here, you can see that as new versions of .NET came out and as new versions of Visual Studio come out, we have released new versions of our software to support that. And if you look along the top, you can see that as new Oracle databases came out, we added support right away for those databases, of course. So now on the far right-hand side, you can see we're all the way to 2015. We've got support for Visual Studio 2013. We've got support for Oracle Database 12c, etc. So if you decide, or if you are a developer for .NET and Oracle, rest assured that you're part of a large community of developers. And if you want to be active in that, we'd love you to be. So we have over 800,000 members in our community right now. Our ODAC, which is our Oracle Data Access Component Package, which contains all of our .NET software, happens to be one of the top 10 most downloaded software on our website, actually. So, one of our, we have a .NET Developer Center that's one of the most popular tech centers, and we cross-pollinate with Microsoft as well. So there's experts working at Microsoft. It's not working at Microsoft, but experts who are MVPs at Microsoft to endorse Oracle products as part of their daily routine. So that includes these names you see here: Bill Evgen, Andrew Brust, and John Cook. And everybody likes to hear about Larry and Bill and how they fight or whatever, but in reality, we actually cooperate. We actually work very closely with Microsoft because we have a lot of mutual customers that we want to keep happy. So on the engineering side, of course, we work very closely with them because we need to do things ahead of time to be able to have versions of our software ready for you when Microsoft releases new versions of .NET and new versions of Visual Studio. So we have access to pre-release versions, etc. And then we're part of the Visual Studio Industry Partner Program, which basically is Microsoft's co-marketing partnership with Visual Studio integration. So we've got up on stage with them and talk about how we're releasing at the same time they come out with a version of Visual Studio. We have a version of our software that works with it, things like that. And then if you happen to go to a Microsoft event, such as, well, for example, coming up in May, Microsoft Ignite. In the past, it was called Microsoft Tech Ed, and we have been sponsoring this all along. So if you are in Chicago, to Microsoft Ignite, we will see you there. We do road shows, etc. And the support side, on the support side, we have collaboration between the support teams so that issues don't fall between the two companies. I'd like to suggest that you could mute your phone. And with that, let's talk about the technologies.
Hey, I'm going to mute all the lines and then hit *6 to bring your voice back on.
The leader has muted your line. To unmute your line, press #6.
Okay, you need to hit *6 so we can hear you again.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. All right. So now let's talk about the specific technologies that we offer. So here is a kind of an overview of the software products that we offer here. All of the things that we're going to talk about today are actually free. You don't have to pay anything for them. You can just download them and use them. So on the left-hand side, you see Oracle Developer Tools for Visual Studio. These are, as they sound like, these are integrated tools built into Visual Studio that give you some, basically tools to work on the database, things like, you know, editing tables, generating SQL scripts, modifying PL SQL, debugging PL SQL. I'll go into great detail about that in just a few minutes. And then Oracle Data Provider for .NET, that is our workhorse ADO.NET client data provider that not only follows Microsoft standards for data access to Oracle or to databases, but also is extended to support all of the enterprise features that Oracle Database exposes with excellent performance, I might add. Oracle Providers for ASP.NET. This is a product that if you ever design web pages, you've noticed they have things like sitemap controls, login controls. Well, all those things have to store their state somewhere, and if you have an Oracle database, why would you want to store that into the file system? You can use the Oracle Providers for ASP.NET to store that state into an Oracle database. And the last thing is Oracle Database Extensions for .NET. This is a feature of the Oracle database on Windows only that lets you write stored procedures using .NET languages like C# or Visual Basic.NET. Okay, so it may be obvious to some people, but not everybody knows this. Even though you may be choosing to develop on .NET and Windows for your middle tier or your client, you can certainly use any version of Oracle database along with any platform Oracle database on the back end. So there's no, just because you're choosing Windows on your client side or middle tier, it has no bearing on what you choose on the database side. All right, so let's say the assumption that I have is quite a few of you might be just starting out. Maybe you've never done anything with Oracle and .NET before. So if you're going to take away one thing from this, this webinar, it would be that URL at the top of the screen there. So if you can write that down, that would really help you. So this is our main web page for .NET support on the Oracle Technology website. And this is where you go to get your free downloads of the software. It will be a one-stop place where you can see links to our various white papers, magazine articles, tutorials. And it also has YouTube video links from there and demos. You can also go there to easily get to our discussion forums, which I highly recommend. They're very active, and vote on new features that you might be interested in. Of course, the latest news as well. So let me just show you that rather than kind of blab about it. Let me just show you that web page because it's pretty important. So let me go there. And this is the page, and you can see the news is important enough. You can see what we're up to. But the reason I'm showing you this is because in order to take advantage that you're seeing here, you are going to need to go to this tab for downloads, and this is where you can get the software that you're using today. So let me just show you that really. So we're going to be talking a lot about Visual Studio integration today. So if you want to use any of the features that involve Visual Studio integration, things like, PL SQL debugging and editing and designing tables and things like that, you're going to need to download this here. It's 32-bit ODAC with Oracle Developer Tools for Visual Studio. ODT with ODAC. Okay, so just make sure you get that. That's because if you just get the data provider, or if you just get some other software, you're not going to be able to follow along here. And there's a lot of other stuff here that's really useful. I think the other thing to call out probably is our Oracle by example walkthroughs. You can see him under tutorials. We have a whole bunch of walkthroughs here to take you through a guided tour of various features that we offer. Okay, so I'm probably going to go right back into a demo, but the first technology we're going to give you a deep dive or a whirlwind tour of is the Oracle Developer Tools for Visual Studio. So as I said, this is a set of tools that it gives you some database DBA-like features. Basically, if you're a .NET developer, you're writing some code, what kind of things do you need to do to the Oracle database while you're working on that code? We try to expose some of those features to you. If you're actually trying to do DBA-related, if you're actually a DBA, you probably will use SQL Developer for your DBA tasks. But we have a subset of the features of SQL Developer built into Visual Studio. So let me take you on a tour of that. All right, so I have Visual Studio 2013 here. And just as a matter of fact, we support Visual Studio 2013, 2012, and Visual Studio 2010 as well. There is a new version of Visual Studio called, we support all the editions with the exception of Express Edition, which does not allow add-ins, but we support all the editions of Visual Studio. And there's a new edition of Visual Studio that's come out called Community Edition. And if your company size, or if you're an open source developer, if your company size happens to match who they're targeting, you can actually use that for free. So if you're just getting started, check to see if you're eligible to use the Community Edition of Visual Studio, and you can use it for free. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is Visual Studio. This is where the .NET developers do all their work. And so we have integrated with Visual Studio, and the main integration point is here in Server Explorer. So you can establish connections here. I already have a connection there, but basically you can provide your username, password, connection alias, and connect. You just need to make sure that your data source is using odp.net here. If you don't see odp.net in the data source, for example, if you see Microsoft's Oracle client or somebody else's data provider, you're not going to be able to use these features. So if you don't see this available, it means you haven't installed the Oracle Developer Tools yet. So you'll have to go back and do that. Once you connect, you have access to a tree control in Server Explorer. This is Microsoft's Server Explorer. That basically lets you traverse through your schema objects. So, for example, I can look at my PL SQL packages and sequences and things like that. And each of these schema objects, and actually all of these items here, have context-sensitive menus. That give you a bunch of different features that you could do. So in the case of a table, I can choose to open up Table Designer. And then you can see that I can modify tables, change their constraints, change their indexes, and basically do everything using a GUI if I want. I don't have to just type SQL if I don't want to. So if I wanted to add a column here, let's say birthday, data type date, I could do that, and it will just issue the correct SQL for that statement. Okay. And of course, if you want to look at your table data, you can easily do that by just double-clicking on any of the tables, and you can edit and modify the table data here as well. So that's great. So, we're looking at things that developers need to do as they're working on their application, working on their console application or their web application. We're just looking at features that help them, help you as you're working on your application. You need to do things to the database. These are some of the features. So what is another thing, what's the big thing that Oracle developers want to do with regard to Oracle when you're working on an application? Well, the answer to that is probably PL/SQL development. So we have a really nice feature here. We've built in a PL/SQL editor and debugger right into Visual Studio. So you can see I've got a package here. Double-click on the isPrime routine, but you can see I've got a package here. And as you can see, we have a PL/SQL editor here that is very similar in function and look to what you see already when you're developing in C# and Visual Basic.NET. So it puts you in the environment that you're familiar with. And then not only can you debug, any editing that you do here is going right into the database, okay? This is just so that you understand, this is any editing you do off of the tree control is going directly into the database back. It's not a SQL script. We'll get to that in a minute. But in this case, you can edit it, you can right-click and compile debug, and then when you're done, you can debug it. So I have a routine here that determines if a number is a prime number or not, so let's just try stepping into that. So I'll choose step into, and use 13, and then I'll just start stepping here. And a few things. Let me pull up the locals window. So a few things to notice. First of all, you can see that it's integrated just like C# and VB with the locals window, so you could actually change some of these values if you wanted to. Do tests. You can also set breakpoints. And so let me just run to that breakpoint. There we go. Get rid of the breakpoint. So just basically all of the things you can set watches, all of the different things that you need to do when you're debugging. And then when you're done, I hit F5 to keep going here. It gives me my result. Now this is just the most simple case of stepping in directly from Server Explorer, but rest assured that we support very complex cases, like if you have a middle tier that has some .NET code in it and it calls one of these stored procedures, you can use Visual Studio to step through the .NET code with the .NET data, then jump over to PL/SQL and debug it, and then jump back out to .NET code again, so that you get to see live data going through. So if you have a bug, let's say of an array that has 10,000 elements in it, and element number 500 blows up for some reason, you can debug that with live data. It's really powerful for .NET developers. Okay, so I mentioned SQL scripts because this is database back. So how do you do SQL script, editing, et cetera, and debug and generation? Well, just get rid of this here. Okay. One of the ways to do it is to add a project to your code project called an Oracle database project. And you don't have to do this, but this is for convenience for you. What it does is kind of give you a landing pad for all of your SQL scripts, to keep them in kind of orderly and in an ordered fashion. And specifically, we do support auto generation of scripts. So, So if you use this project, then the scripts will be nice and ordered in the right location. So let me just give you an example of that. So let's suppose I'm working on a project and I'm accessing some tables, let's say a few of these guys, and a package. So now I can right-click on that and say Generate Create Script Project. I could do the entire schema if I wanted to also. I could just click on this and do the same thing, but it takes a little longer, so I thought I would cheat here. But so you can see here is the master script. You probably recognize this as SQL Plus syntax. Well, guess what? SQL Plus is built into this. It's running in the background. It's part of the product. So it's faithful to your SQL Plus syntax that you may have from other scripts that you have. And so you can see it created a bunch of tables and keys, and they're all kind of organized here for you. So there's our PL SQL package. And if you decide to run it, it'll just run with SQL Plus, as I mentioned. But it will also, we also allow you to store these things as independent files. They don't have to be part of the project. And we also have a SQL Plus, just run SQL Plus window to run any arbitrary script. And then once you've done all this, of course, Microsoft has, Visual Studio has source control integration built right in. So you can easily just add all this stuff to source control and share it. A feature that's very interesting that I'm not going to be able to get into in great detail is Schema Compare. So this is something that you probably want to check out in our one of our tutorials. But basically, it allows you to take two different schemas and then generate differential scripts between them, diff scripts, so that you can, whatever your target is, you can apply the script to your target and bring it up to the level of your source. So I just did a brain dead compare there, but you'd be able to, if you had a script, you would be able to just add it directly to the project with diff script. So that's for another day, but Schema Compare is a really cool feature that we offer. Another area that the tools really help you out in is with performance tuning. So it turns out that we have an ad hoc query window. So if there's anything that you want to do that we don't support, you can just type in the SQL here. Whatever, and execute it. It does like you would expect, right? But we also have integrated SQL Tuning Advisor as well. So I think I have a kind of messed up piece of SQL here. I could probably use this. Hopefully I have all the tables I need. Let's see. Oops. Apparently not.
You missed the S. There you go. It was really messed up.
So let's see. So we have SQL Tuning Advisor built in. So what this does is basically tell me that I don't have the right privileges to do this. Let me do that real quick. And let's try that again. Okay, and so you can see that it's giving me some findings telling me basically I need to add some indexes. And even if you're not the one who is going to be doing the stuff as a developer, you can use this and then provide it to your DBA and say, look what I found, please help me. So it's pretty cool. And then another really cool feature we have for performance is our Oracle Schema Compare. Oracle Performance Analyzer. What this does, I'm not going to be able to do it because it takes some time, but what happens is you run your application, and while it's running, you start this performance analyzer, and it'll just wait a certain amount of time, and when it's done, it will provide you with results. I may have some here. I'm not sure. Let me see. Yeah, let me see if I have any sorry, that's not right. I probably don't, but I just want to check here. These are some of the ones I've run in the past. No. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have one to show you that I've run recently, but in any case, it will provide you with some performance suggestions for improving the performance of your application. Along with that, I should mention that we were talking about integration with Visual Studio, so we're integrated here in Server Explorer. But what this means, because we're integrated with Server Explorer, that means that when you run the table adapter wizard, to create data sets and things like that, this is the integration that allows you to do that. So if you want to create table adapters so that you can populate data sets, you are going to need Oracle Developer Tools. And if you're going to run Entity Designer to create entity models for Entity Framework, you are going to need Oracle Developer Tools Visual Studio, because that's how you get the connection off of Server Explorer. So just keep that in mind. If you want to use Microsoft's integrated wizards and designers, you are going to need this product to be able to do it. Last thing I'll mention is our online help, which I really like. So anytime that you're using these products, you can just click the help button to come to our Oracle Developer Tools help. And I'd highly recommend that you check this out. It has really good documentation for various things. But the other thing that we've included is the PL SQL language and reference guide. And we've also included the SQL language reference guide and the error messages and codes. So what happens is if you get an error, you can press the context-sensitive help key, F1, or if you're in PL SQL and you have a keyword, you can hit F1. And it'll take you, with some luck, we've done some indexing, it will take you to at least an attempt to take you to a page that will help you with that. It's easier with error numbers because they're one-to-one. With PL SQL, it's a little trickier because there's multiple occurrences of keywords. But in any case, the online help is really great here as well. Okay, so that's a whirlwind tour. But if you want to dive deeper in any of these features, go check out the tutorials on the web page I showed you earlier, because that will walk you through each of these features in a lot more detail. Okay, now let's talk about Oracle Data Provider for .NET. So, this is what you're really going to be using in your application. This is how you get data connectivity to Oracle when you're writing code. So, in order to do that, we're implementing ADO.NET standard, right? So that ADO.NET standard includes Entity Framework as well. And so if you already know how to write .NET code against SQL Server or against other databases, then you automatically can start writing code for Oracle because you follow the standard. Yeah, so it's easy to use. I mean, it's what you're already doing. But we also extend it tremendously to support all of the various features of Oracle database that you want to take advantage of. So it's not like the old days with ODBC where you were sort of one size fits all, you're restricted to whatever ODBC offers. No, with ODP.net and ADO.net, it is extensible, and we do extend it to support things like RAC, performance features, security, data types, and more. I'll talk about some more details about that in a second. So I already showed you how to download ODAC from the website. Now, I will say that there is also a NuGet download, and I'll show you that in a minute if you're not familiar with NuGet, but I think a lot of you are. The only thing the caveat I will say here is that NuGet only gets you Oracle Data Provider for .NET. So if you do need to use any of the Visual Studio integration features, you're still going to want to download from the OTN website, because all you're going to get when you get from NuGet is you're going to just get the Oracle Data Provider for .NET Managed Provider. So the ADO.NET object model, also the ODP.NET object model, have this connected layer, which is data set, which is an in-memory representation of your table, and then a connected layer, which has all the Oracle-specific connected features like data reader, command, connection, transaction, etc. So before I blab too much about that, let me just show you some code so you can get an idea of what we're talking about here. So I'm going to create a console project. And I think I'm going to cut and paste some code I already have, if I can find it. All right. So I've got some code here to connect to Oracle, select some data, output it to the stream. Very basic application. Right now it's throwing all kinds of errors because I don't have an Oracle Data Provider in my project. So there's a couple ways you can get the Oracle Data Provider into your project. The first way is to add a reference here and just locate it on your machine. You'll see there's basically two different flavors, and I'll get into what these are in a minute, but Oracle Managed Data Access DLL and Oracle Data Access DLL. And these are coming out of my Oracle home here. These happen to be on the system because I installed the Oracle Developer Tools, which includes ODP.NET. Okay, so I could just check this off and include it right now. But we kind of want to show off our integration with NuGet, because a lot of people want to use NuGet. So let me show you how to get ODP.NET from NuGet. All right, so what I will do is I will say manage NuGet packages for the solution. Actually, let me do it on a project level here. Okay, so what I will do is I will, in the NuGet package manager, I will search on ODP.NET. And this is the part that you have to be aware of. There's a lot of stuff out there from various different companies and different people. So the one that you want to find is our official driver. You want to look for the word official. And you can tell it's a 12C logo. That's the other way you can tell that it's us. But just look for the word official and ODP.NET. And there's two different things here. There's one for people who are doing entity framework projects. That will also pull in the provider. And then this is just the ODP.NET managed driver. And I'll talk about what a managed driver is versus the unmanaged driver in a little bit. But if I say install, what it's going to do is it's going to bring the Oracle Data Access DLL, Oracle Managed Data Access DLL, and put it as a reference. And then more importantly, it's going to do a bunch of configuration for me in my app config or my web config, depending on what I'm using. And this makes your project completely self-contained. It means that you're not reliant on anything that is system-wide. And the reason that's important is if you want to package this up and do a web deploy to the cloud, let's say, or to another server somewhere, it means you have everything local to your project that you need. You don't have to worry about any kind of configuration in the machine config or anything in the registry or anything like that. Everything is local to the project. The people like that a lot. That's why we've integrated with NuGet. One of the most important things you're going to have to know how to do is network configuration. So just to make it easier on you, if you use NuGet, we have added a data source entry here that you can use. And so I'm going to call mine PDB ORCL. And the service name is PDB ORCL. And the source of headache to me always, I always forget to save this and then things don't work. So just remember to save this. But it does a lot of other things in the background here to make sure that you can use all the features that you need out of the data provider. There's a lot of stuff added here. Okay, so the last thing I need to do is I need to reference this here using Oracle Managed Data Access types. Okay, so now you've got this, you've got the references, you've got your app config set up. The last thing you need to make sure of is that your connect string is correct. So this is the ADO.NET style connect string. And you can see I've got PDB ORCL being referenced there. And that should be it. So let's build it. Okay, it succeeded, and let's step into it. All right, so first thing we're doing is creating a connection. That's pretty obvious. Creating a command object with a select statement. And then create a data reader based on that select statement. And this basically executes the select statement and basically it gives you a cursor to the results, which you can then fetch using read. And this is all just ADO.NET standard functionality. It's the same, very close to the same if you're using SQL Server, etc. And there's my result. Okay, so that's your Hello World application. Let's go back to the slides. Okay, so I told you that we extended ODP.NET to support more than just ADO.NET standard features. We support Oracle features as well. So, so one of the big ones we support is a really robust connection pool. Anytime you create an Oracle connection, by default, you can turn it off, but by default, it actually creates a connection pool for you, which, of course, is absolutely a mandatory feature of a middle-tier application because you certainly don't want web applications doing a full connection every time they come to your website. So along with the connection pool, we also have performance counters. Microsoft's performance counters is a standard for tracking things like this. So basically it lets you see like the high water mark. There's a lot of different things, but things like the high water mark of your connection pool, you know, how many connections are being used at the current moment, you know, stuff like that. So it's helpful to tune your pool to make sure that it performs well when you have spikes. And then things like RAC or cluster, Oracle's clustering RAC and Global Data Services, GDS, which is kind of like a combination of all the RAC features, but extended to Data Guard and Golden Gate. So basically, our connection pool is aware of the metadata that is being sent out by your cluster. Things like how much load is a node in your cluster under, or is your cluster down? Is your cluster, it's not your cluster, but is an individual instance of your cluster going down? Things like that. So basically, it emits the database emits information about that, and our connection pool responds to that and makes sure that the connections that are available in the pool are load balanced, so that those nodes in your cluster that are very heavily used will be less represented in your connection pool. Other things we do along that line: fast connection failover, dead detection connection. So like if connections go down in your cluster, we will remove them from the pool automatically for you, so you don't have to receive errors. Fast connection failover as well. Transaction guard, so that if an instance comes down, transaction guard allows you in some instances to recover the transaction. So to guard against replicated transactions or duplicated transactions. So when that happens, you'll receive information in the error telling you whether a transaction is recoverable or not, and allow you to redo the transaction if it was not recoverable. Planned outage: if your DBA decides he's going to take the database down, he can set up a planned outage, and then what will happen is the database will tell your connection pool that the planned outage is in effect, and we will stop connecting to that instance, and then when someone returns a connection to that instance to the pool, we will destroy it, and we won't continue to try to connect to an instance that is being brought down as part of a planned outage. So moving along to other things we support in the database, we support anything you want to do in PL SQL, we support it. Package, non-package procedures, anonymous blocks, batch SQL with anonymous PL SQL, we support all of that. And of course, data types, we support ref cursors, lobs, XML type, user-defined types, associative arrays, Boolean, and the identity type, which is new in the 12.1 database as a sort of migration feature from SQL Server, because SQL Server has identity columns, and now you have it in Oracle as well. Makes it easier to migrate, and it's supported by ODB.NET as well. Our data provider probably has the most tunable performance features that you're going to see in a data provider. You really have fine-grained control of how you deal with data and statements and things like that. So first thing is we have a self-tuning statement cache that basically keeps track of which SQL statements you're using heavily. And so that will help you minimize reparsing on the database side, because if you're using a SQL statement really heavily, we'll notify the database that they should not, remove that SQL statement from the cache. Fetch size and row size. This gives you fine-grained control of how much data is coming back from the database. Depending on your networking topology, you may want to be very careful about network use. So we can let you control exactly how much data comes back in a round trip when you're pulling data back. We also offer similar features off of large objects, things like images, sound files, stuff like that. You have total control of exactly how much if you just want to look at the header of an image or a header of a sound file or whatever, You can do that, or you can bring it all back at once. You have total control. And then as far as caching, we got a lot of great features for caching. Client result cache is a client-side automated cache that basically just takes advantage of round trips that are already happening in the network to create a cache on the client side. You basically almost get that for free, and it really improves performance. So I would definitely look into client result cache as a cheap and easy way to get good performance. Also, continuous query notification basically lets you register notifications for when data would change. And so this lets you build your own cache. So basically you can say, here's a query, execute it, get the data back, and then say, if the data changes, send me a notification. And then when you can receive those, you can handle those notifications and kind of build your own cache. So that's useful for data that doesn't change very much. And of course, times 10 in-memory databases are enterprise-level caching solution. Basically, you can put that in front of an Oracle database and get tremendous performance boosts. If you decide to do that in enterprise-wise, if you decide to do that in your enterprise, ODP.net can connect to times 10, no problem. Okay, so you heard me talking about Oracle Managed Data Access DLL, right? So this is our implementation. This is a newer implementation of ODP.net. It's completely fully managed, meaning all of the code involved all the way out to the networking layer is written in managed code. There's no unmanaged code involved. So I just want to make sure you're aware that we also have the legacy version, ODP.net Unmanaged, which is Oracle Data Access DLL. And then this one uses the Oracle Unmanaged Client Stack that you're probably familiar with, things like OCI and SQLnet, and goes out to Oracle. So what are the differences between the two, and what do you need to know about? Well, ODP.net Managed Driver has some obvious benefits. It's basically agnostic to bitness. It doesn't care if you're 32-bit or 64-bit because it's managed code. It's very, very small. It's about 10 megabytes in size compared to 150 megabytes for the other, and offers some easy patching solutions and integration with code access security. The unmanaged driver, on the other hand, has more functionality because it's the one that it's by default, just by the way things are done, it ends up with the features that are, you know, it's been around longer, so it has more functionality, and also it gets newer features first. So there might be some edge cases where you need to use the unmanaged driver because you really want to use a feature that's not in the managed driver. Refer to the Oracle Data Provider for .NET manual documentation for information on which features are not supported in the managed driver. ODP.net supports Entity Framework and Link. We've recently certified with Entity Framework 6 and Code First and Code First migration. This is a big topic. We have some wonderful tutorials on this, so check out our Oracle by Example tutorials on our website for how to use Entity Framework and Code First and Code First migration. And then as far as your deployment choices, we support the Oracle Universal Installer, which is pretty good for installing on an individual machine. Like if you're going to install Oracle Developer Tools or Visual Studio, you're going to use the installer. But we also provide an Xcopy deployment. Xcopy basically is a set of files and a batch script that makes it easier for you to bundle this with your own application, and you can even write your own installer using Install Shield or whatever. And that's good for large deployments. And then if you're using the managed driver, which is really just you know, a DLL and some config file settings, you can forego that completely and just write your own and use something like web deploy to basically deploy your web application out to the server where you're going. Because the managed provider is just one DLL and a dependence on some app config or web config settings. I just thought I'd mention that the installer, if you are using an Oracle installer, it does have a nice feature where it will, typically when you install with the Oracle installer, you install into a new Oracle home. So sometimes connection aliases and TNS names Aura files get kind of left behind in other Oracle homes. So that's one of the nice things about the ODAC installer is that it will kind of try to track down all of your instances of TNS names and try to move them into your new Oracle home. So I mentioned that Microsoft has their own data provider. When I was talking about Server Explorer integration, I said make sure you see odp.net there because Microsoft Oracle Client doesn't support all this. Well, Microsoft Oracle Client is a legacy version of a data provider for Oracle that was built a long time ago and hasn't really changed. So they finally deprecated it in 2009. So a lot of people are moving over to odp.net. So if you are one of those people and you have a system that's using this, we do have a website for you to help you with the migration. It's generally pretty straightforward. The names of the classes are very similar. The one major difference is bind by name is the Oracle client uses bind parameters based on the name, where we default to position. Okay, so then briefly I'll just talk about a few of our other products that we have to offer, and then if there's any additional questions, we can take them. So I mentioned Oracle providers for ASP.NET. What this does is, like I said, it allows, if you use things like the login control and when you're designing a website, or the sitemap control, or if you are, things like that, you can basically store them in the file system if you want, or into, a SQL Server database. But if you already have an Oracle database, why not just store that website state into Oracle? So if you install the Oracle providers for ASP.NET, you can just start doing that. And it comes with some SQL scripts that basically create the tables that this stuff is stored in. And that's really it. Oracle Database Extensions for .NET lets you write .NET stored procedures, lets you write stored procedures using Visual Basic .NET and C#. Now this is Windows only, so you have to have a database for Windows. Visual Studio has a tool, Oracle Developer Tools for Visual Studio has a wizard that guides you to push out your function or procedure out to the database. So then you can call it from any place. You can call your procedure or function from any place that you could call it normally, like in SQL or PL SQL or from other applications, etc. And there are other .NET features spread across the company in various products that you can check out, like Coherence, Oracle Application Testing Suite, Oracle ADB, Business Process Management, Grid Control. So if you're interested in any of these products, they all have .NET capabilities. And then with that, I'll leave this on the screen. This is a set of links to take home with you. The most important one is the first one. Then we have a Twitter, YouTube. I have a blog. If you'd like to subscribe to it, please do. And with that, I'll check to see if there's any additional questions that haven't been answered. I don't actually see any, but Jeff, how do you usually handle questions at the end? Do people come on and speak, or?
They're not shy. You can hit *6 on your phone, and it'll unmute your line if you want to say something really quick. But if we don't hear anything from anyone, we'll end the recording, and we'll be back next week for a topic to be revealed soon.
I don't see anything in the chat, so I guess there were no questions.
I learned a couple things, so it was good for me. And the recording will be up there, so feel free to share this with your friends, folks.